The night Claire Bennett asked me to fix a broken pipe, I thought I was walking into a simple plumbing problem. I was wrong. Water was spilling across her kitchen floor. Rain was tapping against the windows, and she stood barefoot near the counter with a towel in one hand and her phone in the other. I had seen panic before. Burst pipes, flooded basements, old houses giving up at the worst possible time. But this was different. Claire wasn't just worried about the water. She kept looking at her phone like it might explode in her hand. Every time it buzzed, her shoulders tightened. Every time I asked if she was okay, she said yes too quickly. I shut off the valve, patched the leak, and told her it would hold until morning. Then I packed my tools and reached for the door. That was when she said my name. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough to stop me.
"Ethan," she whispered, "can you pretend to love me for one night?"
Before I tell you what I said, answer honestly. If someone looked that scared and asked you to pretend to love them for one night, would you walk away or stay? For a few seconds, I didn't answer her. The rain outside pressed against the kitchen window, soft but steady. And somewhere under the sink, the pipe gave one last tired drip into the bucket I had set beneath it. My toolbox sat open on the floor. A wet towel was twisted around Claire Bennett's fingers, like she was trying to wring the fear out of herself. I looked at her, then at the door behind me. "Pretend to love you," I repeated. Her face changed as soon as the words came out of my mouth. Not because she regretted asking exactly, more like she had heard how impossible it sounded now that someone else had said it out loud. "I know how that sounds," she said. "I'm not sure you do." A small flush crossed her cheeks. She glanced down at the water spread thin across the tile, then back at the phone in her hand. The screen had gone dark, but she kept gripping it like it still had teeth. Claire had moved into apartment 4B 3 months earlier. I knew that because Mrs. Alvarez from 3A had told me everything about everyone in the building, whether I asked or not. Claire was quiet, polite, worked from home some days and left with fabric samples under her arm on others. Interior designer, Mrs. Alvarez had said. We had spoken maybe 5 times. Once when I carried a delivery box up the stairs for her. Once when I fixed the loose handle on the building's side door. Once when she found my dropped invoice folder in the lobby and returned it without looking inside. That was all. Now she was asking me to pretend I loved her. "I should go," I said, though my hand didn't reach for the knob. Claire nodded too quickly. "Of course. I'm sorry. Forget I said anything." That should have ended it. I had learned, the hard way, that favors with feelings attached never stayed simple. Years ago, a woman I loved had asked me to come to a party as her date because she didn't want to go alone. By midnight, I understood the truth. She wanted another man to see me beside her. I had been a tool in a nice shirt, useful only until jealousy did its job. So yes, I knew what pretend love could cost. But Claire didn't look like someone trying to make a man jealous. She looked cornered. Her phone buzzed again. The sound was small, almost swallowed by the rain, but her reaction was not. Her shoulders locked. Her thumb hovered above the screen without touching it. I saw the name before she turned it away. Derek Miles. "Is that who this is about?" I asked. Claire's lips parted, then closed again. "That's answer enough," I said. She swallowed. "He's coming to dinner tonight. My mother invited him. She thinks we just had a misunderstanding." "And you want me there so he thinks you moved on?" "No." Her voice sharpened, not loud, but clear. "I want you there so I don't have to sit across from him alone while everyone tells me I'm the problem." That landed differently. The bucket under the sink caught another drop. I looked at the patched pipe, then at the woman standing in a kitchen that smelled like rainwater, copper, and fear. "Claire," I said, "I fix broken things for a living. That doesn't mean I know how to fix this. Her eyes held mine for the first time that night. I'm not asking you to fix it, she said. I'm asking you to stand beside me until I can breathe. The phone buzzed again. Derek Miles lit up the screen like a warning. The third buzz came before either of us moved. Claire looked down at the phone, then pressed the side button until the screen went black. That should have ended the conversation. Instead, it made the kitchen feel smaller. You don't have to explain, I said. I do if I want you to understand why I asked something so humiliating. Rain slid down the window. Under the sink, the pipe gave another slow drip into the bucket. Claire took a breath. Derek and I dated for almost 2 years. My mother loved him. Everyone loved him. He remembered birthdays, brought flowers, helped my uncle sell his condo, said all the right things. But not when no one was watching, I said. Her eyes flicked to mine. That was an answer. I leaned against the counter, keeping distance between us. What happened? He started small. Comments about what I wore, who I texted, which clients were too friendly. Then he'd apologize before I could decide if I was angry. She twisted the towel tighter. By the end, I was explaining myself for things I hadn't done. I knew that tone. Not her exact story, but the sound of someone who had been trained to doubt her own memory. My mother thinks I panicked and ended a good relationship, Claire continued. Tonight was supposed to be dinner with her. Then she told me Derek would be there too. She said he deserved a chance to clear the air. And the broken pipe? I asked. I don't know, she glanced at the cabinet. Maybe terrible timing. Maybe. But terrible timing had a way of looking innocent until someone benefited from it. I closed my toolbox, more to give my hands something to do than because it needed closing. Claire, I need to ask you something, and you may hate the question. Ask. Are you trying to make him jealous? Her face tightened, but she didn't look offended. She looked like she had expected the question and hated that life had made it reasonable. No, she said. I'm trying to make him stop thinking I'm available to be cornered. The answer was too clean to be rehearsed. Still, old memories rose. A crowded party, a woman's hand on my arm only when her ex looked our way, my name used like decoration. My heart standing there in a shirt she had picked. Finally understanding I had not been invited because I mattered. Claire must have seen something shift in my face. You've done this before, she said softly. Not like this, but close enough to hurt. I looked away first. She went to the hallway closet and returned with a folded blue button-down shirt. Your sleeve is soaked. This was my brother's. He left it here when he helped me move. You don't have to wear it, but dinner is at 8. The offer was careful. No pressure. No performance. That mattered more than it should have. I took the shirt. If I go with you, we set rules. She nodded. Anything. No kissing. No touching unless you ask first, or I ask first. No dramatic story about how we met. We keep it simple. Relief crossed her face so fast she almost looked ashamed of it. Simple sounds good. And if I feel like you're using me to play a game, I leave. You should. The answer stopped me. Claire simply accepted the boundary like she was grateful it existed. I changed in the bathroom, rolled my wet work shirt into a bundle, and came back to find her by the door in a dark green dress with a beige coat over her arm. She looked composed now, but her fingers still trembled when she locked the apartment. The elevator doors opened with a tired, metallic groan. We stepped inside together. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The mirrored wall showed two people pretending to be calm. Then Claire stared at the glowing floor numbers and said, If Derek smiles at you, don't believe him. The restaurant was the kind of place people chose when they wanted bad news to look civilized. Warm lights, white tablecloths, soft jazz drifting above the bar. A hostess smiled as if nothing painful could happen between polished silverware and folded napkins. Claire walked beside me, close enough for people to assume we belonged together, not close enough to make it feel like a performance. I respected that. From the parking lot to the front door, she kept one hand around the strap of her purse and the other tucked inside her coat pocket. At the back of the dining room, a woman with silver blonde hair stood when she saw Claire. "Sweetheart," she said, opening her arms. Claire accepted the hug, but her shoulders stayed stiff. That had to be Margaret Bennett. Her eyes moved to me almost immediately. Not rude, not warm either. Careful, like she was inspecting a piece of furniture her daughter had brought home without asking. "And this is?" Margaret asked. Claire took one small breath. "Mom, this is Ethan Walker, my boyfriend." The word boyfriend landed between us harder than it should have. Margaret blinked. Across the table, a man in a navy suit slowly set down his glass. I knew it was Derek before anyone said his name. He was handsome in a polished way, all clean lines and practiced calm, the kind of man who knew exactly how long to hold eye contact before it became uncomfortable. When he smiled at me, Claire's warning came back. If Derek smiles at you, don't believe him. "Ethan," he said, standing and offering his hand. "Derek Miles, I've heard nothing about you." The words sounded friendly. They were not. I shook his hand once. "Good to meet you." His grip was firm, but not too firm. Even that felt rehearsed. Claire sat beside me. I pulled out her chair, not because we were pretending, but because Derek was watching closely enough to turn every movement into evidence. She gave me a small look. Grateful, maybe. Nervous, definitely. Margaret lowered herself into her seat. "Claire didn't mention she was seeing someone." "It's new," Claire said. "How new?" Derek asked, still smiling. I placed my napkin on my lap. "New enough that we're not giving interviews yet." One of Claire's cousins gave a quiet cough that might have been a laugh. Margaret didn't laugh. Derek did, softly, like he appreciated the joke and had already forgiven me for making it. "Fair enough," he said. Claire always did like surprising people. Claire's fingers tightened around her water glass. I noticed because I was watching her, not him. Dinner began with harmless questions. What did I do? How long had I lived in Portland? Did I have family nearby? I answered simply. Repair work. 12 years. A sister in Bend. Parents gone. Margaret relaxed a little when she heard I owned my own business. Derek did not. He leaned back and let everyone else talk until Claire began to breathe easier. Then he spoke. "I'm glad she has someone helping her," he said. "Claire can be very independent until she suddenly isn't." The table went quiet for half a beat. Claire looked down. Margaret sighed. "Derek means she doesn't always ask for help before things get overwhelming." "No," Derek said gently. "I mean, she has a dramatic way of making simple things complicated." The softness of his voice made it worse. I looked at Claire. Her face stayed composed, but the skin around her knuckles had gone pale from holding the glass. That was when I understood something. Derek did not need to raise his voice. He only had to say things in a tone that invited everyone else to nod. I set my fork down. "Funny," I said. Derek turned to me. "What is?" She seemed pretty clear to me. For the first time all night, his smile paused before it arrived. Claire looked at me then, really looked at me, like she had not expected me to notice the shape of the trap. Margaret's mouth tightened. "Ethan, you should know Derek has been very patient through all of this. He told us what really happened between them." Beside me, Claire went still. Margaret's words changed the temperature at the table. "Derek has been very patient through all of this. He told us what really happened between them," Claire did not argue. That bothered me more than if she had. Her eyes stayed on the water glass, and the hand in her lap disappeared under the table. I could not see her fingers, but I saw the slight movement of her shoulder. She was holding herself together, piece by piece. Derek leaned forward with a gentle expression. "Margaret," he said, "I don't think this is the time." That was clever. He sounded like the man protecting Claire from embarrassment, not the man causing it. Margaret touched his arm. "No, sweetheart. Ethan should understand. Claire has a habit of running when people try to help her." Claire closed her eyes for half a second. I pushed my chair back. "Excuse us," I said. Derek looked at me. "Everything okay?" "I'm going to ask Claire if she wants air before everyone keeps discussing her like she isn't sitting here." The table went silent. Claire looked up. For a moment, I thought she might refuse just to avoid making the night worse. Instead, she stood. I stayed beside her, but did not touch her back. Letting her walk on her own felt more important. In the hallway near the restrooms, the noise of the restaurant softened into clinking plates and faraway laughter. Claire stopped beside a framed black and white photograph of old Portland and breathed through her nose. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For dragging you into a family dinner that feels like a hostage negotiation." I almost smiled. Almost. "What did he tell your mother?" Claire kept her eyes on the photograph. "That I ended things because I was scared of commitment. That he wanted to marry me. That I embarrassed him in front of clients. That I started accusing him of controlling me when all he ever did was care." "And none of that is true?" "Some of it is shaped around true things," she said. "That's what makes him good at it." I waited. He did talk about marriage, but not like a question, more like a schedule I was supposed to obey. He did show up at my work event, but he was angry because I spoke to a male client for too long. Her voice stayed level, but the effort cost her. From the dining room, Derek laughed at something Margaret said. Smooth, warm, perfectly placed. I looked through the gap between the hallway and our table. Derek was leaning toward Margaret, speaking with quiet confidence. Then he gestured with his hand, casual and precise, toward the kitchen. Not the restaurant kitchen, Claire's kitchen. Something he had said earlier returned to me, a passing comment while the server poured water. Good thing Ethan was there. That cabinet under your sink is always stuck, hasn't it? At the time, it had sounded harmless. Now, it didn't. "Did Derek ever come to your apartment?" I asked. Claire turned her head. "No." "Never?" "Never. He knows the building, not my unit. I didn't want him there." I kept my face still. "He mentioned the cabinet under your sink." The color drained from her cheeks. "That's impossible," she whispered.
Maybe he guessed.
"He doesn't guess," she said. A server passed behind us carrying a tray of desserts. The sweetness of chocolate and coffee drifted through the hallway, strange against the tightness in Claire's voice. Derek was watching us now, not smiling, just watching. I lowered my voice. "If I ask him about it, will you be okay?" Claire swallowed. "I don't know." That was the most honest answer she had given me. "Then I won't ask yet," I said, "but I'm not ignoring it either." When we returned to the table, Derek's smile came back immediately. "There you are," he said. "I was just telling Margaret that Claire always kept that little cabinet under her sink jammed full of cleaning supplies. No wonder something finally went wrong." I stopped behind my chair. Claire stopped beside me. And in that single sentence, Derek told me he knew far more about her apartment than he had any right to know. The table stayed quiet for one long second. Derek's sentence hung there, smooth and poisonous. "That little cabinet under your sink." Claire sat down slowly, as if the chair had moved farther away from her. Margaret looked between them, confused but not alarmed enough. To her, it probably sounded like a harmless detail from a man who had once known her daughter well. To me, it sounded like a key turning in the wrong lock. The server arrived with dessert menus. No one took one. Derek folded his hands on the table. What? Did I say something wrong? Claire's mouth opened, but no words came out. I could have challenged him right there. Part of me wanted to. But I had seen men like Derek work. Accuse them too soon, and they turned your anger into evidence. So I kept my voice even. Just wondering how you knew that, I said. Derek smiled. Claire and I dated for 2 years. You pick up details. About an apartment you've never been inside? His smile thinned. Margaret frowned.
Derek, you've never been to Claire's new place? Claire looked at her mother.
No. Derek gave a soft laugh. Maybe she mentioned it. I didn't, Claire said. This time, her voice did not shake. Derek's eyes moved to her, and for a moment the pleasant mask slipped. Only a little. Enough. Then he recovered. Claire, sweetheart, you forget things when you're upset. The word sweetheart made her flinch. I pushed my chair back. Claire, can I talk to you outside for a minute? Derek lifted one hand. Running again? I stopped. So did Claire. The old Ethan, the man who hated scenes, would have walked away and told himself it was none of his business. But the woman beside me had asked for one night. Not romance, not rescue. Just enough space to breathe. I looked at Derek. No, giving her a choice. Outside, the air behind the restaurant was cold and wet. Rain clung to the pavement. The yellow security light over the back door buzzed like it was tired of watching people lie. Claire wrapped her coat tighter around herself. I should never have shown up. You showed up because they put you in a corner. I asked you to lie. You asked me to stand beside you, I said. There's a difference. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she did not hide it. She stared at the screen, then let out a small, humorless breath. What did he say? I asked. Claire handed me the phone. Derek, you always need someone to rescue you. Below that was another message. Derek, show him whatever story you want. By morning, your mother will remember who always stayed calm and who always fell apart. A cold, familiar anger moved through me. Not the kind that made hands shake, the kind that made everything sharp. Is this new? I asked. Just now. Are there older ones? Claire hesitated. I did not reach for the phone. You don't have to show me. I kept them, she whispered. Maybe because some part of me needed proof I wasn't inventing it. She opened a folder of screenshots. There were months of them. Derek telling her she was too sensitive. Derek saying her mother would be disappointed if she knew how Claire treated him. Derek warning her that if she left, people would finally see how unstable she could be. One message made Claire look at the ground. Derek, I don't have to ruin you. I just have to let people hear your version after they hear mine. The rain tapped against the metal railing beside us. Claire's fingers trembled as she held the phone, so I asked, May I? She nodded. Only then did I take it. The screenshots were not dramatic in the way movies made cruelty dramatic. No threats in all caps. Just sentence after sentence designed to make a person doubt the floor beneath her feet. I kept thinking if I showed these to my mom, she'd say I was trying to punish him, Claire said. Then don't show them alone. She looked at me. Through the glass door, Derek stood inside the restaurant, half turned toward us. He was smiling again. At this point, would you have believed Claire or Derek? Comment Claire or Derek, because what I saw next changed everything. Derek lifted his glass toward us from inside, calm as a man who still thought he owned the room. Derek was still holding his glass when Claire and I walked back inside. The smile on his face looked relaxed, but his eyes moved first to her phone, then to me. That told me enough. He was not wondering whether Claire had shown me something. He was wondering how much. Margaret watched us return with the kind of worry people wear when they feel a room slipping out of their control. "Everything all right?" she asked. Claire sat down before I did. "No," she said. One word, quiet, steady. Derek gave a small sigh. "Claire..." "No," I said. His eyes cut to mine. The restaurant noise kept moving around us. Forks against plates, a burst of laughter from the bar, someone ordering another bottle of wine. Normal life, carrying on while one table turned into something sharper. Derek set his glass down. "Excuse me?" "She gets to finish a sentence before you soften it for everyone." Margaret's mouth parted. Claire stared at the table, but her shoulders did not fold in this time. Derek leaned back, still calm. "You've known her for what, a few weeks?" "Long enough to know when someone keeps answering questions that weren't asked." A faint color rose along his neck. There it was, not anger yet, just the first crack. He laughed under his breath. "This is exactly what I mean. Claire brings a stranger to dinner, tells him half a story, and suddenly I'm the villain." "I haven't told him half of anything," Claire said. Derek turned to her with that careful, patient expression. "Sweetheart, you get overwhelmed. You always have." The word hit the table like a hand over her mouth. I picked up my water glass, took one sip, and put it down slowly. Getting loud would help him. Precision would not. "Derek," I said, "how did you know about the cabinet under her sink?" He blinked once. "What?" "You mentioned it twice. The stuck cabinet, the cleaning supplies, the layout. Claire says you've never been in her apartment." Margaret looked at him. Derek smiled at her first, not me. Smart. "She must have told me." "I didn't," Claire said. "You forget things when you're stressed." "No," Claire said, stronger now. "I remember exactly who I let into my home." Something changed in Margaret's face. Not belief yet, but doubt had entered the room, and Derek noticed. His voice warmed. "Margaret, you know how this goes. She gets upset, and then later everyone has to rebuild the bridge she burned." A month ago, that sentence might have sounded like concern to me. Tonight, after seeing those messages, I heard the hook underneath it. "Don't do that," I said. Derek's smile disappeared. "Do what?" "Use her mother as an audience and her fear as proof." The cousin who had almost laughed earlier stopped pretending to read the dessert menu. Derek leaned forward. "You should be careful. You're stepping into history you don't understand. Then explain it." "I loved her. That wasn't the question." His jaw shifted. Margaret placed both hands on the table. "Derek, answer him. How did you know about Claire's kitchen?" For the first time all night, Derek had no ready sentence. Claire reached for her water, then stopped halfway. Her hands settled on the table instead, palm down, no longer hidden in her lap. Derek looked at that hand like it offended him. "I drove her home once," he said. Claire's head lifted. "No, you didn't." "Maybe I walked her up." "You didn't." "Maybe," he said, his voice tightening, "I cared enough to check on you when you were too stubborn to answer me." The table went still. There it was. Not a confession, not yet, but close enough that everyone heard the door he had opened. Margaret whispered, "You went to her apartment?" Derek's eyes flashed toward her. "That is not what I said." "But it is what you meant," Claire said. Her voice shook on the last word, but she did not take it back. I looked at Derek and felt the old role fall off my shoulders. I was no longer pretending to be Claire's boyfriend to survive a dinner. I was standing beside a woman who had finally stopped apologizing for being afraid. Derek's phone buzzed on the table. He turned it over too fast, not fast enough. A preview lit the screen from a contact named Lena. "Tell Claire I'm done covering for you." Derek grabbed his phone and turned it face down. Too late. I had seen the message. Claire had seen it too. So had Margaret, though I could not tell if she had read every word or only felt the room react to it. Derek stood. "This is getting ridiculous." "No," Claire said, her voice quiet but clear. "It's getting honest." That was the first time all night I saw him look truly unsettled. Margaret reached toward Claire. "Sweetheart." Claire stepped back before her mother could touch her arm. Not cruelly, just enough to say she needed space before comfort. I understood that. "Come on," I said. "Air." This time she followed without apologizing. Outside, the rain had softened into mist. The small patio behind the restaurant was empty except for 2 metal chairs and a planter full of rosemary. Streetlights blurred against the wet pavement. Somewhere beyond the alley, traffic moved through Portland like nothing inside that restaurant mattered. Claire stood under the awning and pressed both hands against the railing. "I didn't know Lena would text him," she said. "You know what she means?" "Yes." Claire closed her eyes for a second. She saw things, heard things, but Derek convinced her staying quiet would be easier for everyone. For everyone or for him? A tired laugh escaped her. "You learn fast." I took off my jacket and held it out. "You're cold." She looked at it, then at me. "That wasn't in our rules." "Neither was your ex accidentally confessing he checked on your apartment." Claire accepted the jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. It looked too big on her, but she did not give it back. For a while, neither of us spoke. The quiet was different now. Not empty, not comfortable exactly, but honest. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since her kitchen. "Why me?" Claire turned her head. "What? You barely know me. You could have called a coworker, a friend, a cousin, someone who already belonged in that room." Her fingers tightened around the edge of my jacket. "I almost did." "But you didn't." "No." "Why?" She looked out at the rain instead of at me. "Because last month Mrs. Alvarez's heater went out, and you fixed it after hours without charging her." I blinked. "And because I saw you carry groceries upstairs for Mr. Kim when his knee was bad. And because one morning, when the side door lock stuck, you fixed it before anyone could complain and never told the landlord." Those were not memories I expected anyone to keep. Claire's voice softened. "When I had the flu 2 weeks ago, someone left soup from Sam's Diner outside my door. No note, just a receipt with the name torn off." I looked away. She noticed. "That was you," she said. "It was soup. It was kindness when I hadn't asked for any." The words settled somewhere I had kept locked for years. Part of me wanted to step back. Kindness had been mistaken for weakness before. Usefulness had been mistaken for love. I had promised myself I would never again become the man someone reached for only because I was convenient. Claire seemed to read the fear in my silence, not by magic, but because it was probably written all over my face. "I didn't ask you because you can fix things," she said. I looked at her then. She held my gaze. "I ask because you don't break people." For a moment, the rain was the only sound. Something in me loosened. Not enough to call it love, not yet, but enough to admit the night had stopped being a favor somewhere between her kitchen and the way she said that sentence. My phone buzzed first. A message from Sam. "Building manager says hallway camera saves 48 hours. Need me to check something?" Before I could answer, Claire's phone rang. The name on the screen was Lena Brooks. Claire stared at it like the past had finally decided to speak. Claire did not answer Lena's call outside. She let it ring until it stopped, then looked at me with my jacket around her shoulders and rain shining in her hair. "I want my mother to hear it," she said. That was not the voice of a woman asking someone else to rescue her. That was the voice of a woman who had finally found the edge of her own strength. I nodded. Then we go back in. When we returned to the table, Derek was standing beside Margaret, speaking low, one hand resting on the back of her chair. He looked like a concerned man calming a family crisis he had not created. The sight made something hard settle in my chest. Claire walked to her seat but did not sit. "Mom," she said, "I need you to listen to me without interrupting." Margaret looked wounded. "Claire, I have been trying to listen all night." "No," Claire said. "You've been trying to decide which version of me is easier to believe." The table went silent. Derek gave a patient sigh. "This is what I'm talking about." I stepped beside Claire, then deliberately moved half a step back. Not in front of her, beside her. "Let her finish," I said. Derek's eyes narrowed. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "No," I said, "but you're afraid of it." His mouth tightened. Claire placed her phone on the table. "Lena called me. I'm calling her back on speaker." Derek's hand moved almost before his face did. "That's unnecessary." Claire tapped the screen. The call connected after 2 rings. "Claire?" Lena's voice came through, thin and shaky. "I'm here," Claire said. "My mother is here. Derek is here. Ethan is here too." There was a pause. Then Lena exhaled. "Good." Derek laughed once, quiet and sharp. "Lena, whatever you think you're doing..." "I'm done," Lena said. The restaurant around us seemed to fade. I heard only the small speaker on Claire's phone and the ice shifting in someone's glass. Margaret leaned forward. "Lena, what is this about?" "It's about me staying quiet when I shouldn't have," Lena said. "Derek told me Claire was unstable. He told me not to feed her drama. But I saw the messages. I heard him tell her nobody would believe her if he stayed calm and she cried." Claire closed her eyes. Derek's face had gone flat. "That is completely out of context," he said. "Then explain the context," Lena replied. "Explain why you told me Claire needed to be managed. Explain why you asked me not to answer her calls after she left you. Explain why you said her mother would bring her back around if we all stopped encouraging her." Margaret's hand rose to her mouth. Claire did not cry. Somehow, that made the moment heavier. She simply stood there with her shoulders straight and my jacket slipping a little from one side. I wanted to fix it. That instinct rose fast and useless. But this was not a pipe, not a hinge, not a broken lock. This was Claire's voice coming back to her. So I stayed quiet. Claire unlocked the phone again and opened the screenshots. "Mom, I kept these because I thought one day I might need proof that I wasn't imagining it." Margaret looked at the screen. Her expression changed slowly. Confusion first, then resistance, then something like grief. Derek reached for the phone. "Margaret, messages can be edited." I caught his wrist before he touched it. Not hard, just enough. "Don't," I said. His eyes snapped to mine. I let go immediately because this was not about force. It was about line. Claire moved the phone closer to her mother. "Read this one." Margaret read silently. I watched her face as the words did what Claire had never been allowed to do. They entered without being interrupted. "Derek, I don't have to ruin you. I just have to let people hear your version after they hear mine." Margaret whispered, "Derek." He spread his hands. It was a difficult time. People say things when they're hurt. Claire looked at him then, fully. "You weren't hurt. You were angry I left." "For someone who claims she wanted freedom," Derek said, "you sure found a new man fast." There it was. The mask slipped all the way for one ugly second. Margaret saw it. Everyone at the table saw it. Claire's voice trembled, but it did not break. Ethan is not the reason I left you. He is just the first person who stood beside me without asking me to shrink. Derek's gaze moved over me with open contempt. He fixes sinks for a living, Claire. Don't confuse that with love. The insult landed nowhere near where he intended. I almost smiled. Funny, I said, because tonight I fixed one sink and still managed to tell the truth better than you. One cousin coughed into a napkin again. Derek turned red. Lena spoke from the phone. Claire, there's more. Ask him where he was tonight before dinner. Derek went still. Claire looked at him. Where were you? He smiled again, but it came too late. At work, he said. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A second message from Sam. Camera has him on your floor at 6:42. I looked from the screen to Derek. For the first time all night, I knew exactly what the next question had to be. I read Sam's message twice. Camera has him on your floor at 6:42. Across the table, Derek was still standing with his hands open, wearing the wounded expression of a man who wanted witnesses more than truth. At work, he repeated. I was at work before dinner. Claire looked at me. I did not hand her my phone right away. Not because I wanted control, but because I wanted one clean question before Derek had time to build another wall of words. Derek, I said, what time did you leave work? His eyes moved to my phone. Why? Simple question. Margaret's voice came in, low and tired. Answer him. Derek adjusted his cuff. Around 7. Claire's fingers tightened around the back of her chair. Dinner was at 8. Exactly, Derek said. I came here. Straight here? I asked. His smile returned, but it was thinner now. You really enjoy pretending to be a detective, don't you? No, I said. I enjoy knowing when a man is lying. The table went completely still. Derek's jaw flexed. Careful. I turned my phone so Claire could see Sam's message first. Her eyes moved over the screen. Something passed through her face that was not relief exactly. More like the pain of being proven right about something she had prayed she was wrong about. Then I showed Margaret. She read the message once, then again. What does this mean? She whispered. It means the building camera caught Derek on Claire's floor at 6:42, I said. Before she called me about the pipe. Before dinner. Before he told all of us he came straight from work. Derek let out a sharp laugh. A text from your friend is proof now? No, I said. It's a start. I typed Sam back. Can you send the still image? 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Lena's voice came through Claire's phone, softer now. Claire, he told me last week he wanted you to need help from the wrong people so your mother would see you weren't doing fine. Derek snapped toward the phone. Lena, shut up! There it was. Not polished. Not gentle. Not concerned. Just control. Stripped bare. Margaret flinched as if the words had touched her skin. The image from Sam came through. Security camera still. Hallway. Gray carpet. Elevator doors. The date and time in the corner. And Derek Miles standing outside apartment 4B. Claire's apartment. He was turned slightly toward her door, one hand near the frame. I did not know if he had broken the pipe. I was not going to claim what I could not prove. But I knew he had lied. I knew he had come to her floor. I knew he had tried to make her look unstable while creating reasons for her to need help. Sometimes the truth did not arrive as one explosion. Sometimes it came as enough small lights turning on at once. I placed the phone on the table. Margaret stared at the image. Derek looked around, maybe searching for the person most likely to still believe him. He found no one quickly enough. I was worried about her, he said. Claire let out one breath. No, you weren't, he turned to her. You don't get to decide what I felt. I get to decide who enters my life, she said, and you are done. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Derek's face hardened. After everything I did for you? Claire stood straighter. My jacket slipped from her shoulder, but she caught it before it fell. After everything you did to me, she said. That was the moment Margaret broke. She pushed her chair back and covered her mouth with one trembling hand. Claire. Claire did not move toward her mother yet. Maybe she could not. Maybe she had waited too long for this moment to rush through it. Derek grabbed his coat from the back of his chair. This is pathetic. No one stopped him. He walked out past the bar, past the warm lights and folded napkins, carrying his perfect suit and ruined mask into the rain. Only after the door closed did Margaret turn fully to her daughter. Her voice cracked. Why didn't I believe you? The door closed behind Derek, and for the first time all night, nobody rushed to fill the silence. The restaurant kept moving around us, but our table felt separated from everything else. Margaret stood with one hand pressed to her chest, staring at Claire like she was seeing her daughter through clean glass after years of fog. Why didn't I believe you? She asked again. Claire looked at her mother for a long moment. My jacket still hung from her shoulders. Her phone lay on the table beside the screenshots in Lena's call, now ended. Because he made it easier not to, Claire said. Margaret flinched, but Claire did not soften the truth. You wanted me to be confused, Claire continued. You wanted this to be a misunderstanding. Because if Derek was really hurting me, then you had to admit you kept sending me back toward him. Margaret covered her mouth. I looked away for a second, not because I was uncomfortable, but because some moments belong to family, even when family has broken them. I am so sorry, Margaret whispered. Claire's eyes shone, but her voice stayed steady. I need more than sorry tonight. I need you to stop inviting people into my life after I've asked you to let them go. Margaret nodded quickly. I will, I promise. Claire did not move into her arms right away. That mattered. Forgiveness was not a switch. It was a door she could open when she was ready. When she finally stepped closer, Margaret hugged her carefully, like someone holding something fragile and knowing she had helped crack it. I gathered my phone and the wet bundle of my work shirt from the chair. The roll was over. The dinner was over. Claire had her truth back. So I did what made sense. I stepped toward the exit. Ethan? Her voice stopped me the same way it had in her kitchen. I turned. Claire stood beside her mother, still wearing my jacket. You can stop pretending now. I tried to smile. That might be the problem. Her brow softened. What is? I don't think I was pretending by the end. The words came out quieter than I expected, but they felt honest. No performance, no audience, just the truth standing between us after a night full of lies. Claire looked down, and when she looked back up, her smile was tired but real. You were only supposed to love me for one night, she said. I know. Rain streaked the windows behind her. I held her gaze. But maybe one night is enough to know when something stopped being pretend. Claire breathed out a small laugh, the first one that did not sound broken. Coffee? She asked. Tonight? No, she said. When we're not acting anymore. I nodded. That sounds like a beginning. Claire and I did not fall into each other's arms that night like people do in movies. Real healing was slower than that. It started with coffee 3 days later at Sam's Diner, where she returned my jacket and I pretended not to notice she had folded it better than I ever had. It continued with walks through damp Portland streets, short phone calls that became longer ones, and conversations where neither of us had to perform being stronger than we were. Margaret kept her promise. She did not fix everything overnight, but she started listening before deciding. Lena apologized to Claire, and Claire accepted it only when she was ready. As for me, I learned something I should have understood years ago. Being asked for help is not the same as being used. Sometimes trust arrives disguised as a broken pipe, a shaking voice, and a question no one should have to ask unless they are desperate. Claire once asked me to pretend to love her for one night. But love, real love, was never in the pretending. It was in the way she chose truth when lying would have been easier.
It was in the way I stayed without trying to own her fight.
And it was in the quiet beginning we built after the noise was gone. Sometimes love does not begin with fireworks. Sometimes it begins with water on a kitchen floor, a door left open, and one person choosing to stay. If this story touched your heart, please like the video. And if you enjoy emotional love stories about second chances, hidden feelings, and the truth finally coming out, subscribe for the next story. If you stayed until the end, comment "Love Stayed"